Okay, good afternoon. It's February the 11th, and I am excited about this interview. I will say there's a lot of people that have contacted me and said, yes, we really want to watch this interview. And look in here, you have Rich Brune on your left, for those that don't know, and Brad Borcherding. I was corrected to say how the correct way to say it on your right. And Brad is gracious enough to allow us to do this interview in his house, and it is a beautiful home, and he has a nice spread out here. And Rich actually wore it in. He has his Letterman's jacket from his high school days, and they're going to leave it sitting there, or they can take it down after a while. But it is still in really good shape. And they informed me, of course, Brad probably remembered more than Rich did because Brad remembers everything, that the NHUC, the little circle there, was given to Rich for making 50. You said 50 free throws in a row at practice. So did he give that out other than free throws, or was it just free throws, or?
I think it was just a special deal
Okay.
for free throws.
Did he do that after every practice, or did you guys shoot that many free throws every practice?
Every night when we'd shoot free throws, it'd be, shoot till you miss.
Okay.
And get 5 shots, and on your last shot, you were done if you missed.
Okay. And
when somebody'd get up to 15, then we'd call it out. Everybody'd stop shooting and just watch that guy until they missed. And if you made it to 30, you got a patch.
Okay. We are going to cover, I don't know a lot, but I've heard stories, possibly the best overall team in New Haven history. Possibly is what it's hard to compare generations because there's obviously different styles.
Sure.
But they were tremendously talented. And did you guys both go to R2? Or was there an R2 back then?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So was all you three and Wally were in the same class? Was there anyone else that?
The makeup of the '67 team, the starters were Roger Wolf, who grew up in town, and Roger Chip, we called him. He was probably the only real connection to
Keep talking, Mom, grab my
to the guys, to New Haven. His brother Skip was one of the greats, all-time greats at New Haven. But the rest of us, Roland Lutz, who was a senior that year, Wally, Rich, and myself, we all came from R2. Gary Gerling had been out at Campbellton for grade school.
Okay.
And his brother Steve. We would have had Mike Leisman, who was the 6th man on that team. Mike was a good ball player. He would have started on a lot of teams.
Right.
He was also from town. But Virgil Wolf joined us that year. He had gone to Herman for his freshman and sophomore years, and that's when they did the switch and expanded the New Haven school district to the west a little ways. So, most of us didn't have the connection to the tradition of New Haven basketball.
Okay, back when you guys were at R2, did you guys have organized basketball back there, or was this? Was there a team, or was there a coach, or?
We were blessed.
Yes.
That Rich and Wally and I were, that our 8th grade year, the lady who'd been a longtime teacher, she retired.
Yep.
And Bill DePriest, a young guy out of St. Louis, came out and was the 7th and 8th grade teacher. And he would rent the old high school gym in New Haven on Saturday afternoon and take us in. And boys would play basketball, girls would play volleyball. I know for Rich and Wally and I, as 8th graders, that's the first time we shot a basket inside a gym.
Yeah.
And you take, now Gary out at Campbellton, there was a gym out at Campbellton School already in those days. But Roland, he probably went to high school before he shot inside a gymnasium. So it was like I like to say, Kent, my first connection to the history of New Haven basketball would be when you got old enough to read and you would go into town on Highway E and get to Highway 100 and see the New Haven city limits sign there by where you go to the high school now. city limit sign, and on that sign it said New Haven, basketball capital of Missouri.
Yeah.
State champs 1956, 57, 58, 59. But for all of us, other than Chip, we didn't have a connection, hadn't seen those guys, or, I by luck when I started high school, I think I'd seen 2 games in a gym, 2 high school games. One because my cousin was playing down in Afton in St. Louis County, and we saw him play out at Pacific, and I got to see one game at Washington, maybe when I was 9 or 10 years old. But didn't know anything about that,
Right.
About what was going on.
I lived out around Disson and Detmold, and you just didn't hear anything about, and my parents weren't real sports oriented, so we just didn't hear anything about the the good teams in the late 50s, so, and then to add, we went into the old gym with, Coach DePriest would take us in there on weekends when he could, but other than that, we just had an asphalt court out there at R2, and we'd be out there, and when it was freezing, below 32, the nets were frozen, and, shooting the ball going there, and it was usually Wally that would come along and,
Tip it back out.
yeah. That was our intro to basketball.
So were you guys aware, obviously there was some years difference, you're looking at 10 years, so you were 8. Do you guys remember, I think you may have touched on, do you remember anything at all about them winning?
No.
Not
Or was there talk when you were growing up, like how kids are, hey, the state championship, 1 second left on it,
no, not until we got
No.
to high school.
Okay.
I mean, the closest thing we had, once we got old enough as maybe 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to be looking at the paper and seeing what New Haven had done, as we've talked about, New Haven's conference record, the years going into high school for us were not great at all. Our freshman year, which was for Rich and I, which would have been sophomore for Roger and Gary and Mike and Roland, the varsity won 1 conference game.
Yeah.
And the 2 years before that, it was just about the same, one or two games. So it was really then the next year, that 66 team, which would have been Ken Lowney, Ed Hammond, Larry Riggy, George Panhurst, and then Gary Gerlin was the only junior with those 4 seniors.
And Roger Helen.
They went 7-7 in conference. They beat Owensville, who ended up winning the state Class M state championship. They won the regional, we called it districts at that time. They won the regional and had a lead in the first round game against Glasgow with a few minutes to go, and started trying to freeze the ball a little bit too early and ended up losing that game. But those guys, really got the credit for turning the program and taking that next step.
So let me ask you this, and I'm going to mention the seniors that were lost in 66, that left the team. Did Mr. DePriest, did he teach you any fundamentals, or because Brad and I were talking before Rich got here about basically the JV. When he was on JV, they really had no practice, very little. Rich and Wally were moved up on varsity. So what I'm saying is, when you guys were freshmen, was Coach Wilson, did he teach you any fundamentals, or is it kind of more or less on your own? Or because looking at the photos, I will tell you, looking at the ones I have that Brad shared of you guys shooting, you got your shooting form, guys' shooting form were perfect, just by showing how you release the ball and how you. So I didn't know if it was, did someone teach you that, or is this more or less you picked it up playing when you got in high school?
I think we picked it up. Gary Gerling had the purest shot, one of the purest shots I've ever seen. So how he picked that up, I don't know exactly, but
Yeah.
Coach Wilson was, like I told you before we started, he was just eccentric. I mean, in the old school when we were freshmen, there was a time when he's the B team was practicing, and he literally said, "Okay, I want the guys on defense." He gave us badminton rackets and boxing gloves, you know, for when people would come in, you know, on the offense. That he just wanted to do something totally off the wall there.
Really?
And I was going to say, back to Bill the Priest, I remember he tried to teach us some basics, you know, blocking out and stuff like that. And the reason I remember it was that one time we went in there, he had drawn up a play where on the offense, you would come around and people would set picks. Well, he was part of that, and he and I ran into each other forehead to forehead, and I gave him a cut on his eyebrow, and he was bleeding. I felt bad about that, you know. So yeah, he tried to teach us basics.
Okay.
You know.
And, you know, Wilson, he really stressed offense.
Oh, yeah.
You know, shooting, you know, taught a lot of shooting fundamental. I spent most of my high school career with a rubber sink washer taped to the
To
palm,
keep it off your
tape
palm.
on the palm of my hand, because I had the tendency
Yeah.
to let the ball sit
Yeah.
on the palm and not get it off my fingertips. You know, so, you know, he really worked, and we were part of an era, you know, basketball during that time was Pete Maravich, Rick Mount, Calvin Murphy, these guys that were averaging 35
Yeah.
points a game,
Yeah.
you know, without a three-pointer. So scoring and offense was a big deal. And of
Yeah.
course, you know, you go back and Coach Wilson, you know, when we found out that he owned the record for most points, 90-some
Yeah.
points in a state playoff game, you can kind of see where offense was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Rich. I know you want to make a comment.
Oh, I was just going to add, I remember him talking about Rick Barry one time during practice, you know, that, hey, this guy shoots this way, you know. Watch
Well-
him.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you.
Let me say one last
Okay, go
comment.
ahead.
Well, we need to just talking about what Rich said about Gary. I mean, it was a thing of beauty.
Yes.
We laughed a lot of times, those of us on the bench watching, because Gary had a tendency once in a while when he would miss a shot, he would look down and look like at his hands.
Yeah, like they were the issue.
What
Yeah.
happened
What I
there?
do.
You know, what are you guys doing?
Well, I shared a photo of Rich, or not Rich, Gary shooting, and I put in there basically for all the young people that want to. This is and it was just like he was lined up, everything was perfect, but
He would come off that pick, square up, go straight up, and then that wrist would just roll.
getting back to your washer in your hand, Dwayne Cretley and I do a lot of basketball games, and we talk about a lot of fundamentals, and there are a lot of sloppy shots. And it's quite, and I don't, for the coaches that are watching this, I don't want to talk bad about you, but I'm going to. That stuff should have been addressed at a young age. You see a lot of thumbing the ball,
Yeah.
you see a lot of hands to the side, a lot of kind of two-hand push stuff, and I think a lot of it has to do with the three. They're not learning how to shoot in close. But going on your record here, there was one actually scored more points, 93. George Luke Wilson was his nickname, scored 92 on February 24th, 1953.
Wow.
So, yeah, at Ellsbury. So, this first one, we're just kind of going to talk about the lead up. And I'm going to mention the seniors that were on the 66 team that left. You mentioned Larry, Ed Hemmond, George Panors, Ken Lowney, which was a scorer. He's on the list. I don't know. I know you and Wally are ahead of me. I don't know without looking at the book where he is. But John Scheibel, Robert Walkenbach, Carl Altage, and Roger Helling were on that team. And we'll cover when you're talking about how far they went in 66, they beat MSD 92-47 regional. Was the region? Do you remember if the regional was out here like you guys had,
It
or
was Jeff City.
it was? Okay.
Yeah, because they played the regional there and went back up for the
Okay.
first round game of state.
They beat St. Elizabeth 54, and you were part of that. Did you move up with them on regional? You were part of that team. Did you get a lot of playing time that year? Or
No.
okay.
No.
Did you learn a lot from Lowney? Was Lowney inside or mid range like you guys? Are you shot or not?
Yeah, Lowney. Yeah, I mean, like Brandon and I were talking last night, I think one thing that helped us is we ended up in the summertime going back and playing a lot of summer games or practices.
Yeah.
And a lot of the older ones that graduated would come back, and Lowney was always, part of that.
Were any of the 50s era guys that ever come back and play? Okay.
Kingsbury and Larry Shear.
At that time, the state didn't allow you to practice as a team like you did.
Well, I didn't know if you came back like an open gym night.
And coach wasn't supposed to be around, or even be around it. But the guy who had the big influence on that was Tom Plummer.
Yeah.
He kind of organized the
town
team. And so, once a week we'd go in and Tom would be there with Larry Shear, Rich Riggy, John Kingsbury was living in Washington at that time.
Yep.
And then whoever else would be in town. I know different times. Glenn Shear was there. Probably not just too much because, that was about the time when he was coaching at Owensville. And whoever else, might be in town. I told Brad and Brian Quick, their dad, Billy Ray, who was the barber in town, he'd come out and play. I still remember, he had these tennis shoes that looked like he'd gotten them in 1952 and stuff, but he was out there mixing it up with us. And there'd be a few big guys there to pound around on Rich and Wally. And, that was, again, getting back to when talking about when we knew the history and to be playing against some of those guys. And, we'd play us against them, or then sometimes mix it up and start build your confidence when you could play ball with guys like that.
Did they ever, since you guys didn't have a lot of instructional at a young age, did they kind of hey help you guys a little bit with stuff? The older guys that were, and that's not that big of a deal, but I'm just curious because when I would go play, I'd like pull, hey, obviously I'm out of school for a while, but try working on this stuff. Did they do that with you guys at all, or was this more or less, hey, we want to beat these young guys? Or was it, did you guys mix it up, or was it always the young guys versus the older out of school guys, or do you remember? I mean, I know this has been so long ago.
Probably mixed, but I think the answer to your question is probably as much as those guys saying do this, it was us being sharp enough to just pick it up and say, oh, did you see what John Kingsbury just did? Okay, I'm going to go practice that for the next 9 months and get halfway close to being able
because
to
when I interviewed Larry Shear, and I've heard other people say Kingsbury did stuff that no one else did around here at the time. Just about what he could do with the ball.
He looked, going back to just see the shot development, if you'd have pictures of shots from George Wilson's shot to most of those guys that played in the mid 50s to us, it would be kind of an evolution of going from two-handed set shots to a one-handed set shot to a jump shot, all the way across. But if you had Kingsbury in that set of pictures, it fit anywhere in the ball.
Well, and that's what
it fit today with the guys you see today.
Because I heard through, I mean, obviously I love digging into old story basketball, but that he more or less was like one of the first ones to shoot a true jump shot. I mean, a true jump shot. And he had something around the free throw line. He had a move that was almost unstoppable at the time. But we can dig into that. Let's keep going down this regional because we're at 18 minutes. Go ahead.
John Kingsbury, too, one thing I noticed, it seemed like he had a smart court presence, that I think he could visualize things before they happen.
Yeah.
Almost a little bit of something like Larry Bird. He was very court aware so that he could score, but he was good at helping others.
There was one like that, and Keith Davis has played a lot of basketball. He still says the best player he's ever played with was Kyle Wolf, and Kyle Wolf had that same ability to kind of see things going on.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So that one there where you're part of, then it was Tuscumbia 66-51, and you played Crocker 52-45, and then the Glasgow game. Do you remember where the sectional game?
That was in Jeff City too.
At the same school or
Lincoln University.
Okay.
So that was, it was a good deal.
And I did look, and Glasgow ended up getting beat, I think, right afterwards. So it was, I mean, it wasn't like when you look, say, hey, if we would have beat them, we could have, not saying things could have, but it's, I did say that the B team was successful, it said. So, what, obviously the town was excited probably that year. Say, hey, we're getting good again. Around that time, seeing everything that was coming up and what Gary did as a junior, was there excitement of potentially what was coming down? I mean, obviously you had the Twin Towers. You, looking at the photos, you grew later, or you were a little bit shorter when I saw you when you were younger than Wally. And obviously
Yeah,
you guys are similar
I saw
now.
that as juniors,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that was the first part of the year. I was a couple inches
Yeah.
shorter than Wally. You know.
So there had to be some anticipation in town. I mean, you go to the games now, and I'm not saying anything bad because it's obviously a real rebuilding and they're young.
Yeah.
There's still as many New Haven fans. It's like they will not, New Haven fans they're not fair weather fans.
Yeah.
The town had to be a buzz when they say, hey, we got Gary coming back scoring the amount of, and he and Lowney obviously scored the majority of the points there, what I saw, but just by doing the scoring too. But do you guys remember, or do you guys talk, hey, we're going to be pretty good going forward? Was that ever anything that crossed your minds, or?
I don't know as much, you know, because, I mean, we had Gary coming back, but you'd lose 4 good players. I don't, you know, I don't think it was, we were afraid to say it, I guess. You know, we had the feeling was, there was a feeling building, but, you know.
I think we evolved as being a very balanced team.
I mean, you know, it wasn't like, you know, you'd see Rich and Wally, there's 2 big guys, you know, they're going to match up well with any big guys, but are they going to, you know, I don't think anybody would have predicted at the beginning of the season, you know, in today's world, there wouldn't have been too many people ready to lay down a whole lot of money on the fact that we were going to get to where we ended up that year.
I would agree with you.
But you know, then looking back now, you say, well, everything fell into place. You know?
Well, and that's probably, I'm younger, and the thing is, when you guys didn't have any real exposure in 8th grade or before, nowadays you see, hey, we got a good 5th group. If they can continue to grow and develop, they're going to be good when they get in high school. So there's really no.
Yeah.
But obviously, you played more with the varsity. Could you and Wally, obviously, a gauge would be, and you guys are probably looking at me, why would you even think this? Kenny and George were probably the inside guys, right? Kenny,
Right.
Could you guys get some things done against those guys? Obviously, you were probably thinner. Or that would be a gauge for me I would be Wally and say, you know what, we can get some stuff done against these guys. We have if we continue to improve, we're going to be. Obviously, when you got a senior, we could cover that another time later on, but we're not going to go beyond 67. After that, you exploded as far as your offensive game. You scored like crazy. I saw the scores, but did you ever? Am I just overthinking it as an adult that you don't think of that as a kid? Because when I was JV playing as varsity and we would beat them a lot in practice, it's like, you know what, we're gonna be pretty good if we can beat the varsity team sometimes in practice or a lot.
Yeah.
Was that ever?
I don't know that we thought about it in that sense a lot.
Okay.
I think it evolved probably when we started our season, and then maybe confidence built in us as we went along and grew as a team. Because I know that one article that had Lutz in there, and Brad and I were talking about that last night. He was really a big part of our team. I mean, he was an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
He didn't score that much, but his role was really good. And then Chip Wolf developed into a good guard. And then Wally and I think we both scored 16 points a game, something like that. And then Gary Gerling, it all came together. But to answer your question, I don't know that. Do you remember ever Wilson saying, "Hey, this is our goal"? At the end of the year.
He never set goals. Hey, let's do conference first, and then he didn't set that, or was it just game by game like a lot of coaches do?
I think so. I mean,
I think
you
so.
know, it's hard to read his mind, but I mean, he didn't.
Okay,
he didn't think he was going to lose any games.
Right.
And he, at that point, the transition and the growth of New Haven coming from, that one-win team his
Yeah.
first year, he relished in being the underdog.
Yeah.
And so he was still, rather than saying you guys can be good and building us up, he challenged us, which probably for us was a good psychological thing.
Do you remember where he coached at before? Or, I mean, it's been so long, I couldn't find anything.
I'm not
I'm not
sure
sure
where
before.
he was before he came.
He went down to, afterwards, didn't he go to Fox Arnold and then somewhere in southeast Missouri too?
So he just wants you.
Mexico, I think.
Little did he know if he would have stuck around a couple more years, he probably could have had a state champion with. I'm sure coaches are like, well, Rich and Waller are gone, so nothing against Brad or anybody else, but hey, there were two big guns are gone. What am I going to have?
Yeah.
Time to fly. But that summer between '66 and '6, we're near a break already. It doesn't seem like we've been going this long, but we're near a break. Did you guys have conditioning, or back in the 50s, Todd and Larry Shear, everyone ran cross country and this? Did you guys? You couldn't have a lot of like set stuff. Did you have conditioning, or did you guys have open gym a lot?
No, we had conditioning. We baled hay.
So you didn't have any running or anything. Once basketball was over, see you next fall.
Wednesday night.
Okay.
Night.
Yeah.
As long as we could get off the farm, you could be in town playing with those guys.
Did you guys? We're going to get into the season, but before the season, did you guys do it, or is it basically first day of practice was when you started?
It was during practice, we'd run lines.
Sure.
And
So you didn't do anything before?
We didn't practice in September.
Well, we always, Steinoff always, Coach Steinoff, sorry, not Steinoff. We ran hills, we ran the track, we did like in the fall before practice started, obviously the open gym. So I didn't know if you guys had got going in there. And
now you got to remember too, our season started a lot earlier than now.
okay,
I think our first game when we were seniors was October 27th.
Really?
My birthday. Yeah.
God, that's a long season.
He turned 17.
Really?
The day of our first ball game of the
Really?
season.
God, it's a long
He
season.
was a 16-year-old senior practicing, like one of these guys that leaves early in high school now.
So, well, that's interesting because I would
We didn't
imagine
get
most
any
people.
NIL money.
Well, yeah, most people probably didn't realize unless you were alive. I didn't know it started that early because now they're more or less waiting for football season to get over with.
Right.
And they kind of give exemptions, I think, for players that make it further or stuff like that. So let's take a break. We're almost at 30 minutes already. And
Okay.
once we get back, we are going to dig into the season. Like I told Brad earlier, I have all the scores written down and I made a lot of notes because thankfully Brad gave me a scrapbook that you say your mother compiled, or was it you or family?
Mom
Okay.
saved the clippings.
So there was a lot of things on there. So let's take a break. We're getting older. I don't know if anyone needs to use the restroom. If not, we're going to start back pretty soon.